Yo, we talking about groceries on FBA. Yo, easy. Yeah. J to the O, the Mayos. Groceries on FBA. What you know about that? Step your game up, suck it.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, welcome everybody. We have Mark Faggiano from TaxJar here today. This is really the number one question that we get, in our groups is, how to collect sales tax. And really the only good option that we found is TaxJar. And like I was just saying, we've been using it since I think the end of 2013. So it wasn't very long off from when it, when the company actually started. They've really expanded, and I'm sure Mark will go through all the options that they now have. But it's really hands off once you set it up. For us, we really never have to log in and do anything anymore with the automated submission to the individual states that they've done, at least for the states we use. Do you have, I know some of our clients you didn't cover, so are you covering all the states now for home state submission? Because I know I know at least Arizona it didn't work with.
Yeah, so there's kind of two, and thanks for having me on the show today. So there's kind of two levels of the product. The first, what we call automated reporting, and basically what that provides is the data that you need to return if you so choose, which a lot of our customers do. They'd rather just file it because it doesn't take them long once they actually have data. Then we have a second tier, which is called Autofile, which will automatically file the return to the state, make sure that the payment gets made on time. That's not available in all 45 states that have sales tax laws. We're getting closer and closer. We're in the mid to high 30. I think we're at 37 states out of 45 right now. Arizona is not one of them. We held off on Arizona because they have, for the last 2 years now, they've talked about revamping their sales tax system, and they've punted both years. So, but yeah, tons of our customers use the automated filing service because the idea of TaxJar is really just push off, your entire sales tax compliance picture, so you don't have to deal with it anymore.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so, it's great. You can be hands-off for most of your states. And I think, Mark, you have a little presentation on how your, how your tool works. And then we can go into the Q&A after that. We can't hear you, Mark. You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just get my screen ready.
Here we can see it.
Okay, cool.
Oh, well, now it's black.
Now it's black. Here we go. Okay. It's always that nervous moment. Okay, so starting from the highest level, right? We're all about taking, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we're all about taking what you do in terms of sales tax compliance completely off your plate. So what we say is we're all about painless sales tax compliance for online sellers. We do everything from calculating how much should be collected at the point of sale. That probably doesn't apply to many people watching this today because Amazon does do the tax collection for you. But some sellers will also have their own website. Maybe they'll be selling on a platform that doesn't do the calculations, and we have that capability. To everything after the calculation, which is reporting and filing, which I was talking about. So the reporting is getting the data that you need to be able to go ahead and file a return on your own if you so choose. And filing, probably pretty obvious, right? That's us filing the returns. So as you guys mentioned, we've been around 2.5 years, closing in on 3 years now. We've got thousands of paying customers. Those are Amazon FBA sellers. Just put up some of the names you recognize on the screen. So we not only integrate directly with Amazon, but with a number of different other marketplaces and shopping carts. So again, everybody's multi-channel, right? So you probably have not only do you have your presence on Amazon, but you have a lot of folks still have a presence on eBay. You may have your website. You might even be using a point of sale device. We integrate directly with Square because you're going to trade shows or you're going to craft fairs or whatever it is, wherever your stuff sells. And obviously, it's important for us to make sure that we get all of your data so that we're filing an accurate sales tax return, not just your Amazon side of the business. So one of the, just kind of at a high level, talking about the features. So we're wondered about where you have Nexus because of Amazon FBA. We can tell you that. So we now have an automated report that shows where your items are being actively shipped from. So this is just a quick screenshot that shows you from within our app, just a dummy account that shows that this particular person has items that are being shipped out of all the states that have that little Amazon badge next to them. So that's been a common question that we've gotten over the years is, I understand about Amazon FBA Nexus, but the process for me to go through where I could potentially have Nexus, as I'm thinking about where to comply, what I will plan, that part's just a pain in the butt. So we've automated that. What your sales and taxes state. So that's when you log into our account. By the way, it takes maybe 15 seconds to set up an account, or 30 seconds to connect your Amazon account to us. You only have to do it once, and you're done. We pull down your sales and tax data automatically overnight every single day. We're showing in this screenshot how much sales tax has been for each of the states where you're actually collecting. And if you're not collecting in any states, we'll show you how much you should have collected. And we'll do that in cases of where you're based and where we're showing that you have Amazon Nexus. So we talk about automated reporting, and we talk about need the data to go ahead and file a return. And it'll be how this actually is.
You're breaking up a little bit, Mark.
Okay. Any better now?
A little bit.
Okay. One of the challenges of filing a sales tax return is you actually need sales and taxes collected by jurisdiction, right? So you can't just send the state of Florida a check for $500. They want to know the breakdown of your sales and how much you actually collected for each certain, basically the group that I'll get to at length to this. But so that's we're taking the data from Amazon or wherever else you connect to in the format that you need to go ahead and file the returns. Do all that manual work of going through in a spreadsheet line by line for every single sale to determine, okay, this sale was made to this county, this sale was made to that county, and then subtotal it up. That's what takes Amazon sellers in particular so much time to do that work. We'll also show you if you're collecting accurately or not. So we've seen with especially Amazon sellers, they're not always collecting accurately. They could be collecting too much, or in a lot of cases, they're not collecting enough. And that comes down to mostly just settings within Seller Central. So if you get this right, and that's not only setting up the tax collection by state, but also product tax level with product tax codes. And Amazon does an amazing job. Will collect very accurately. So one of the things we've built in is this sort of trigger that says it'll flag you to let you know if you're not collecting accurately. But also we'll give you this, what we call an expected sales tax due report, which a lot of folks find helpful if maybe they haven't collected any sales tax at all, and they've got to go file their first return to a state, and they have no idea what they should have collected. Maybe they started collecting sales tax midway through the year, and they have to file for a year and what collected they weren't collecting. You just want to know, am I doing this the way or not? So that's another thing that TaxJar will do. The last thing I was asked, how long does it actually take you to file, right? So gathering all the data on your own probably takes on average a few hours, depending on if your business is at sort of scale. And then going in and filing that return takes anywhere from 5 minutes to another half an hour, depending on what state that you're filing in. So that's why we built this filing feature called Autofile. Question off the top, these are that we autofile in currently. We're adding more this year, 2016. And service that's available for an additional fee. It's $19.95 for each return that we're filing. And again, now we're talking end to end, right? So we're getting the data from Amazon or wherever else you're selling, and we're just submitting it to the state. You've given us where your bank info from where you want to make the payment. Payment gets made on time, and literally now it's on autopilot. You don't have to do anything. So that's kind of a quick overview. Happy to cover questions related to the product or related to sales tax compliance in general. I think would be helpful for the audience.
Yeah, great. I'm sorry. All right. Are you done with the screen? Okay, perfect. Mark, thank you so much.
Sure.
Let's go. I don't know if anyone in chat has questions. Now would be the perfect time to ask. If you want to come on and talk or just post them in the chat, feel free to go ahead. Shawn, do either of you guys have any questions that you want?
Yeah, I have it's probably the elephant in the room question, but Nexus is always a super hot topic, and it seems like it's hard to get even a CPA to say which states you would definitely have Nexus on. What, so you're probably closer to sales tax than anybody. What's your thoughts on how definitive that is?
So you're right. This is kind of the $1 million question. For me, the actual laws are pretty definitive. It's once you understand the laws, that becomes the real gray area in the sort of interpretation. So if we agree that inventory can be caused or can't nexus, which I know not everybody agrees with, but what stance on that is that that's based on looking at the laws of the individual states, right? They've written in laws that say, okay, we don't care if you've never been to whatever particular state it is. Mm-hmm. The fact that your stuff is stored here is just the same as if you had a retailer, right? That it constitutes nexus, and that means you need to comply with the laws. So the only state that has recently come out and muddied the waters is Virginia. Virginia has come out and said, not explicitly that FBA doesn't count as sales tax nexus, but they've come out and said your inventory being stored here does not count as sales tax nexus. There's a little bit of a controversy because they didn't mention FBA by name. To me, if you read the ruling, it looks a heck of a lot like an FBA seller, right?
Yeah.
So what we've said is, look, again, what we're trying to do is give you the information that you need to make the decision that's best for your business. One of the things we not to do is preach about, do this or do that. You have to do this. You have to do that.
Right.
So, we've alerted sellers to say, Virginia, you're open to some interpretation here. It's not as cut and dry as the other states. So, hopefully that answers the question. And again, the real question to me becomes, all right, knowing what we know now about what Nexus is, okay, what am I supposed to do about it? And that's typically what people ask at that point. Okay.
And do you, and I don't know if it's this question, so if not, just let me know, but kind of a holistic view of all the FBA sellers, would you say there's an average number of states that most sellers are filing in? Are you seeing trends like people pick 2 states, or the majority are going with all of them, or?
Sure. So on average, what we see is folks are somewhere at least a few states. Okay. There are folks that, and this is where it gets into the kind of the philosophy of how you're going to handle this. We've got plenty of customers who are filing in every state.
Right.
And that's because their philosophy is, look, I don't like the idea that I'm complying somewhere.
Yep.
So I'm just going to get it done. And every time a new state pops up on the radar, I'm at that one.
Okay.
To me, that's the much more conservative approach. I would probably only be taking that approach if I was at some scale and it was a larger seller. I don't think a smaller seller should be doing that. The more realistic approach in my mind is more of a wait and see approach. So for you, Todd, to use you an example,
sure.
Okay, you're gonna comply in Florida for sure because that's where you're based, right? The line for the state to draw is not very long because they know you're, your business is registered there. Do you guys have, you guys don't have interest returns, I guess?
Nope.
Yeah. Lucky guy.
Yeah.
But the point being, you're much more out in the open than you would be, for California. So, you're in Florida, you're going to comply there. Now you're going to take a look at, okay, let's look at what my sales activity is in the other FBA states. Mm-hmm. For a reason, let's use Indiana as an example. You make 5 sales a year there, and that comes out to it should have been $15 in sales tax collected. For me, I don't think it's worth the time to go comply in Indiana for $15.
Right.
If Indiana somehow found out about you, and if they then decided to, come after you, hopefully that $15 plus interest is out of business, right?
Right.
But if you get some level of sales where, I could do pretty good in Indiana. If they did come after me, the amount of sales tax that I owe and the interest that's tacked onto that actually could hurt my business, right? So I'm going to go comply there because it's making me feel uncomfortable that I'm not complying in the state and doing a ton of sales there.
Yeah, and I've heard some states are more notorious for being aggressive towards sellers. So I think there's a handful of states that a lot of sellers know that, those are the first ones to take a look at when you start filing. But I've heard the same thing. I mean, we've talked with the former director of sales tax audit for Florida in an offline conversation. He pretty much said the same thing. He said auditors get paid around $80,000 to $90,000 a year, so they're not going to send that guy that chase somebody that owes $10.
Right.
They go with the low hanging fruit, and so really it seems like your gamble is how far down the tree are you with your sales, and is that a risk like you said you're willing to take? Same with insurance. A lot of sellers don't do insurance initially. Some of them do. Amazon kind of requires it at a certain level. It's one of those things where it's either a big waste of money or it could save your business, depending on what you do with it. So I was just curious because I know you kind of have your finger on the pulse of what people are doing.
Yeah, I think risk tolerance is a great guide to this whole thing. And the other scenario is if you're a brand new seller, I definitely would not spend the time being compliant with 15 states. I would spend the time trying to validate that you can actually sell stuff on Amazon. Yeah. And if the business, if it takes off overnight, that's awesome. I know that's easier said than done. But then you can figure out where to go comply. But, just as a small business owner, you guys know spending all that time on administrative back end sort of problems.
Yeah.
Especially when you're just trying to prove that you can sell, 10 pairs of shoes in a week. So I don't think that's the way to go.
At some states like Arizona, for instance, are just nightmares to get it set up with. I mean, it's just so tedious.
Yeah.
I know you guys are chasing the Autofile, which has been super. I'm a super cheapskate, but I'm on the verge of signing up for that myself, just so it makes sense. Have you thought of doing like a registry service, like where you could get sellers set up in different states?
Yeah. So we're actually testing that.
Okay.
So we have a service where we've partnered up with some third-party providers out there. This is a service that they offer. So we have it available on our site. The average permit is about $100. There's some fluctuation in that depending on if the state actually charges to get a permit, which is ridiculous. But we are working on that pretty big hurdle, right? It takes a certain amount of I don't know what you would call it, but to arrive at the point where say, look, I'm going to go ahead and comply in Arizona, for example. Okay, what do I need to do? Well, oh, geez, I got to go fill out this stupid form. Yeah. I'll just push it off, and the next thing you know, it's Q4, and you got better things to do, right? So,
and I'd say Arizona, the $100 is a steal. Florida, I may be willing to wing it, but that's good to know because I went down the road to Arizona and hated every second of it. So,
Arizona is by far the least popular state for Amazon sellers. They make things way more complicated than they need to, all across the board. So we hear that a lot.
Someone in the chat just chimed in and said Arizona's a nightmare, so they're agreeing with that. Val posted a question: what is considered a small seller? Do you have a sales range in mind, Mark, for what you consider a small seller?
I don't. You can answer that better than I could. It comes down to some sort of personal threshold, and what we see again is that it's tied to, amount, for lack of a better way of describing it, amount that you would owe to the state that actually could put a dent in your business and or put you out of business, right? So if you're looking at, this is one of the things TaxJar does, if you're just monitoring sales in FBA states and you see that California now you owe them thousands of dollars, well, I don't know, that's a lot of money for most people, but for some businesses that actually, if California, which is one of the more aggressive states, if they found out and came out after you, that could literally put you out of business. Others say that would hurt, but I could withstand it. So the law being what it is, I really think it comes down to kind of that, whatever that internal threshold is.
I think, and Shawn can weigh in if he has a different opinion, but I think at the point where Amazon considers you a large seller, when you get a tax document from Amazon, and that's when they require insurance. To me personally, that was kind of my threshold. That told me, hey, I'm on the radar of, the IRS and everybody else now because, Amazon prepared a tax document for me and I'm required to have insurance. So each person has their own threshold, but I think that's kind of an easy one, I think, once you hit that point.
Yeah, I think my opinion and what I tell people is that when you feel you have a significant amount of inventory, whatever to you is significant, then you should probably be registering in there. Because if you think it's significant, then somebody else probably does too. And we're registered, I think, in about 6 states, which is probably not where most of our inventory is anymore because, everything keeps getting moved around. But, when we did it, I think that was when we registered. We're in Florida, so most of our stuff used to go to Tennessee, and now most of it goes through Kentucky and Pennsylvania, were our main main places. So those were the first ones we registered in, and we would just register another one and another one. Now I probably wouldn't have registered in as many states. Just seeing how everything flows. But, we did that, several years ago when we were first starting out.
Yep.
There was a question sent to me. What is the difference between the withholding tax permit and a sales tax permit?
Not totally familiar with a withholding tax permit. There typically is confusion around an exemption certificate and a tax permit, which in some states they're one and the same. Other states they can be different. So there is a difference, bottom line, between your ability to buy as a seller an item tax free, wholesale item, and your ability to collect taxes from your customers. So you do need a permit for in a state. It's considered to be illegal to collect without a permit. So
you're breaking up, Mark.
Oh. Yeah, any better?
Try again. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Sorry, guys. I don't. Time Warner Cable. We could have a whole show on that. Again, there's a difference between buying items with an exemption certificate and then collecting tax from your customers. You need to have a permit to be able to collect from your customers before you are collecting. You're not supposed to collect without it. But hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, because they said that they must be in a state that requires permits. So, but I think that pretty much answered it. If it does, try to cover more. But yeah, that's all I didn't have any other questions. Did you guys have more?
Yeah, I just have one more. I don't mean to hog the session, but
gosh, Todd.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
And it was an educational conversation I had with Mark probably a year ago, and I was just wanting to see if he can kind of share an overview. But the internet sales tax legislation that has been kind of floating around for I guess a couple of years. At first glance, it seems kind of appealing what they were pitching, and then I was actually thinking, well, that sounds like a good idea. And then I remember I spoke with Mark, and there's some elements to it that were from the dark side. It seemed that didn't make it such a great idea. So do you know, Mark, where that is, and do you have any kind of an opinion on whether it would currently be a good thing or not in its current form?
So definitely nothing about that.
You're breaking up again.
So, oh man, sorry guys.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yep. Better? Yep. Jeez, sorry. So there's nothing good about any federal legislation that's been proposed. There are two laws that are, I don't even know what you'd call it, but they've been thrown out there. They've been proposed in Congress, but nothing has happened. One's called the Marketplace Fairness Act of 2015. And the other is the Remote Transactions Parity Act. Okay, and basically the goals of each of these laws is to throw out the traditional definition of nexus and get more people to collect and file sales tax in called remote states. So we'll pick on Todd again. Todd is in Florida. Let's just say it's only complying in Florida. For Todd, every other state is a remote state because he's not complying. Marketplace Fairness Act basically says if you get over a certain threshold sales remotely, Todd will now have to collect sales tax in every single state and file a return in every single state. To me, that's completely outrageous and not realistic. The remote
Yeah, you hung up one more time. We heard the remote. That was the last.
Okay. So the time you'll have this tax guy, geez, doesn't even have an internet connection. The Remote Transaction Parity Act basically says the same thing, but the old is a lot lower, and the potential pool of folks that it would apply to is a lot bigger. And what it actually says is anybody selling in a marketplace would have to comply. So literally anybody selling on Amazon or eBay would have to comply with that law. And again, the end goal is roughly is trying to get people who states. So, you know, both of them are absolutely crappy deals for online sellers. Where we're coming and you know, the next question is, will either one of those pass? And you guys, your guess is as good as mine. This is an election year, as we all know. I can't see them passing any tax legislation. I'm not an expert on how things work in Congress, and then you would figure the first year of a new president, I can't imagine they would want to pass tax laws. So I don't see, personally, my bet, if I had to put my money on the table, would be nothing happens in 16 or 17. What the other trend, though, that we advise folks to at least keep an eye on is that states are tired of waiting around. So states are starting to take things in their own hand and changing their own definitions of nexus. So some states like Michigan, for example, doesn't have an FBA warehouse. They have gone back and changed their definition of nexus for remote sellers. So they're all motivated by the same thing, which is e-commerce is blowing up. They know that there's potentially money on the table there for them. What can we do to expand our taxpayer base? And they see it as a bonus, right, where they could actually get people out of state to pay taxes. So they're less political heat than forcing, you know, in-state residents to file tax. So that's where we're headed. I always bring it up just as something people should at least be aware of and keep an eye on. You know, at TaxJar on our blog, we are pretty much on the cutting edge and try to keep people in the know of what's going on, what's being talked about.
Okay, great. Now, I had some questions about the pricing. They're the free months, but after that, it starts at $19, and it's for up to 1,000 transactions. So, is that let's say somebody's strictly an Amazon seller? Is that 1,000 Amazon transactions, or would that be just as far as the taxes?
Yeah, it would be an Amazon transaction. So a transaction is any sale, whether or not you're collecting sales tax, whether or not it's domestic or international, and whatever platform you're on. So if you add 5 platforms to your TaxJar account, we're adding them up into the one number. And that's because the cost to us is, you know, on a per transaction basis. So
what happens if you go over whatever your limit is? It's 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000 is $99 a month. So if you know it's Q4, or you know you're really ramping up your business and you don't change your plan, what happens then?
Sure. So we worked really hard on this to make this as simple as possible for customers, and talk to a lot of customers about what would make sense, what's fair. So basically, we never shut down your service. So if you go way over your transaction count, doesn't matter. What we do is we basically charge you for the plan that you should have been on that month. Using December as an example, if you're typically do 800 transactions a month and now you jump up to 3,000, we would charge you for the plan that you should have been on in December, that $49 plan. And then back in, you know, January starts, you're back on the plan that you were subscribed to. We don't bump you up automatically, permanently. We don't shut you down. We don't force you to talk to a salesperson, anything like that.
Okay, so basically you should just stay at the cheapest plan because you're just going to charge whatever.
Yep. Right.
And the automatic filing, is that a blanket one price? I know it's charged per state, but is it all the same, or does it depend on the state? Are there different prices for different states?
Same price. So it's $19.95 for any return that's filed. So if you file one a year, it costs you that $19.95. We'll charge you once a year. If you're filing in 5 states per month, then you know it's 5 times $19.95. Doesn't matter the state; it's all the same price.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to.
We have.
Hello?
We had a question in the chat too. Well, he's, I don't know if he's on the phone. Yeah. So will TaxJar take care of setting up with Amazon Pay as far as what % needs to be charged for different items? For example, some food items are not taxable, but others, such as candy, are taxable.
So we have a guide. If you go to FBASalestax.com, we have a free white paper that we'll send you, and that has basically a cheat sheet that shows you exactly how to fill out for each state tax collection. So we don't have a service that does that. First and foremost, we basically provide the answers to the test. In terms of product tax codes, we don't have anything on that. We do have a couple of blog posts that show you how to change product tax codes. We don't have a service that reads your inventory and product and determines the correct product tax code if that's what's being asked. We could happily refer you to someone who could help you make those determinations, because I know in some of them they're tricky. There could be some gray area, but we got tons of information on our web. You can search for product tax codes and show you how to set those up.
Okay, perfect. And then someone wants to know if they pay for the yearly plan, how do you charge that?
Sure. So if you sign up for an annual plan, you get a 10% discount. And it's good, for the entire year, 365 days from when you pay. So there is some incentive there to sign up on an annual basis.
I believe they were asking if you went over your transactions, how would that work to charge you?
Gotcha.
So would you charge them every month the difference?
Yeah, we would just So if you're on the basic plan, the $19 plan, and signed up for a year, and in July you went over, we would basically in August charge you for the plan that you should have been on in July.
All right, Val, hopefully that's so weird saying your own name, but hopefully that answered your question. And I don't think that anyone else has any questions. Shawn, Todd, you guys good?
Yeah, I would just make one comment for those of you that are already using TaxJar or aren't either way. We were talking about kind of determining when to collect sales tax based on your sales volume. Once you're set up on TaxJar, even if you're not collecting sales tax in those states, it captures your sales volume. So when you log into your sales TaxJar dashboard, there's a box that says, are you collecting the right amount of sales tax? You can click on that to get a list of all your sales by state. So what I usually do a couple times a year, or you can even do it annually, is you just go in and pick a date range. I'm actually doing it right now while I'm talking. And it will show you your total sales by state, both the ones that you declared Nexus and sales tax and the ones that you have not. So it's really easy to go in there and click on sort. And I see a couple states I need to pick up as well, but I don't collect sales tax in all the states. Even though I don't, I can see my total sales. So it makes it really easy for you to go through and kind of decide you want to start collecting that, to Shawn's point, whenever you think you're hitting a threshold where it's going to be a problem. So just an FYI, we can cover that with someone on the webinar if you guys want to see it.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.
And just to touch on what Mark was talking about earlier, as far as groceries and items that you don't think may be taxed, you have to set those up, is what he was saying. It walks you through how to do it, but you have to set your own tax codes up inside of Amazon. And we can help you do that, but you have to do it yourself. You set what is taxable. Every time you list an item, there's an option for tax code, and you can set up non-taxable and taxable items, whatever you think shouldn't be taxable. And then there's settings for that for each state. So that's completely up to you. They're just taking, with TaxJar, it's just taking all the information from Amazon and putting it together, which would take you I mean, I sold 40,000 items last year. You know, I couldn't even count how many hours that would take for me to look at every one, see what state, and figure out what county each one was in to process. So it's compiling all that information and, you know, making it very, very easy by just giving you all that information to submit to the states. But the tax is collected when every transaction is done, one transaction at a time. So when somebody buys on Amazon, that's when the taxes are charged. So if you don't have it set up correctly, they're not going to be collecting the right sales taxes for you. You know, so it has to be done in advance for non-taxable items, or however you want it to work. Okay, someone wanted to know, do we have to apply for and get sales tax certificates for all 50 states, excluding the states that may not have sales tax? And I believe we already covered that. You know, it's up to you to figure out what, decide where you have nexus in. Most states that have sales tax want you to pay them somehow. So you have to figure out where all your items are, and if you have nexus on your own. Of course, you know, some people are doing it in all 50 states, or however many it is, 44. But you know, you have to decide where you want to do it. I would not recommend, you know, doing it in all 50 states. Of course, always start out in your home state to collect sales tax, and then expand from there where you think. My idea would be to where the most amount of products are. And of course, to where you're selling the most is usually the two top options. Luckily, most of my sales go to my home state. Florida is really, you know, a lot of sales for our business, at least. And Val wanted to know, you tried to set up for Autofile and you said you were able to. Is it because I've not paid the taxes owed? Okay, not able to. I don't know, Val. You'd have to say what the actual error was and why you weren't been able to do it. Let's see. Elise, did you have something to add to that, Mark, about not being able to register? Is it because I have not paid my taxes owed?
Tough for me to say without looking at Val's account. I'm certainly happy to have somebody on our customer success team look into it if they want to email us at support@taxjar.com. I will say if somebody has not collected any tax at all and they need to go file their first return, we'll block them from being able to auto file because we want to talk to the customer to make sure that they're, find out what selling. Are they selling a combination of exempt and taxable items or just taxable items? So we can't file for them, but sounds like in that scenario, we should at least a conversation to make sure first before we go.
There's also a window near the due date where you can't enroll either. I think it's like 5 days before the due date. Like in Florida right now, it won't let me enroll because the due date's on the 20th, I think.
Yes, right.
So that may be the other thing, depending on when you're looking.
That's true.
Okay. Lisa says, I have noticed that different stores charge different sales taxes differently. An item that may be taxable at Publix, but not a dollar store, etc., or certain flavors are taxable while others aren't. I'm worried if that Publix doesn't know which items are taxable, I will have a hard time figuring it out. Yeah, well, you really have to look at, your own states for to see what is. I'm assuming you're probably in Florida if you're shopping at Publix, but you have to see what is taxable. If food is taxable, sometimes food is really crazy in some states because some are. Okay, I'm also in Florida, so. almost all food is really not taxable in Florida. You know, but you just have to look at the rules for whatever, you know, states you're registering in. And, you know, it's usually pretty simple to figure out. You know, different stores are, you know, not looking at individual items. They're just looking at categories. So, you know, if you do the same thing, you know, you're not going to go to jail for, you know, not charging an extra 0.5% tax on, you know, on something that you didn't know about.
Yeah. One thing to add there, I think is really important, is that to us, there really is no such thing as being perfect when it comes to this stuff. So most of the states, if not really all of them, understand that this is hard, and through no fault of your own, if you're making some mistakes that you know, amount to the wrong amount being filed, in most cases they're honestly not going to care. Where they are going to care is when there's just more dollars at stake. So, you know, filing a couple $100 to a state and you're filing the wrong amount off by 10% or whatever it is, honestly, the state's not going to care at all. So we always say that best effort is better than no effort. And so don't stress too much about trying to be 100% perfect on this, because I honestly believe it doesn't exist.
Right. I just went ahead and posted a link to Florida for the non-taxable items, you know, which is mostly food, you know, and every state, of course, is going to be different. You know, so it's very easy to, you know, just Google it and, you know, you'll find all the items, and, you know, it's really a huge list for Florida. You know, almost everything food is non-taxable, you know, or it should be, you know, and if they're taxing it, then, you know, they're probably doing it wrong and collecting more tax than they should be.
Have anything to add?
Okay, and I think that's, you know, covering pretty much everything that anybody had. If there's no more questions, did you have anything else, Todd?
No, that was it for me.
Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you to
night.
you and
Thanks, Mark.
Take